Okay, I'm going to do these two questions because they're both Article 207. And I understand a good part of 207, except for the very end I'm a little bit weak on. But there's two things going on here. It's about an individual who resides in the state with a false name. And then the other one is question 28. They're from the state, but they flee the state, basically. So, is it flee the state? Hold on. If a person outside of this state, when the cause of action accrues against him. So, let me pull up the actual article, which I have right here in my handy book. Oh, I don't want to lose that page. Okay. So this is Article 207. Defendant's absence from state or residence under false name. I'm going to turn, I don't know if this is smart, but I'm going to try to do this. Let's see. My arm's about to break. So if when a cause of action accrues against a person, he is without the state. So he's from the state, but he's without the state, and that he's not in the state, right, at that time. The time within which the action must be commenced shall be computed from the time he comes into or returns to the state. If after a cause of action has accrued against a person, that person departs from the state and remains continuously absent therefrom for 4 months or more, or that person resides within the state under a false name, which is unknown to the person entitled to commence the action, the time of his absence or residence within the state under such a false name is not a part of the time within which the action must be commenced. If an action is commenced against a person described above, the time within which the service must be made on such person, in accordance with subdivisions A and B of section 306-B of this chapter, shall be computed in accordance with this section. This section does not apply. This part I'm a little leery on. I don't quite totally get it. 1. While there is in force a designation, voluntary or involuntary, made pursuant to law of a person to whom a summons may be delivered within the state, with the state effect as if served personally within the state. Or 2. While a foreign corporation has one or more officers or other persons in the state on whom a summons against such corporation may be served. Or 3, while jurisdiction over the person of the defendant can be obtained without personal delivery of the summons to the defendant within the state. All right, so let's go back to these questions, because those are both 207. This is Article 2, Section 207 of the CPLR. So, again, the two topics here are either someone's in the state with a false name, or someone is from the state, but they're out of the state. So we're going to start with question 27, which is about the false name. What is the effect on the statute of limitations for a civil action if after the cause of action has accrued against an individual, he resides within New York State under a false name unknown to the person entitled to commence the action? And the answer to this one is A. The statute of limitations is told for such period that the individual resides in the state under the false name. So let's look at that answer in detail. CPLR 207 provides that the statute of limitations is tolled. Tolled means does not run for any period that the potential defendant resides within New York under a false name unknown to the potential plaintiff. Additionally, this period is not counted in the 120-day service period under CPLR 306B. So basically what it's saying, so when you're talking about tolling, it says the statute of limitations is tolled. Tolled means does not run. So because that person has a false name and the person cannot file against them because they don't know who the hell they are because they have a false name, that tolling begins. So usually the person would have it. Let's say the person knew the person's name and they didn't have a false name. They'd have a period of 120 days, right, to file. But that is going to not run. The 120 days is not going to run because the person has a fake name. So how the hell are they going to file a case against them if the person has a fake name? It's not possible. So this reference 306B is to the service. Hold on. The summons and complaint. Let's read that. I'm going to turn to 306B. This is service of the summons and complaint with notice, third-party summons and complaint, or petition with a notice of complaint or order to show cause. Service of the summons and complaint, summons with notice, third-party summons and complaint, or petition with a notice of petition or order to show cause shall be made within 120 days after the commencement of the action or proceeding, provided that in an action or proceeding, except a proceeding commenced under the election law where the applicable statute of limitations is 4 months or less, service shall be made not later than 15 days after the date on which the applicable statute of limitations expires. If service is not made upon a defendant within the time provided in this section, the court, upon motion, shall dismiss the action without prejudice as to that defendant, or upon good cause shown or in the interest of justice, extend the time for service. So the thing is that basically, let me see if I can get the wording right here. Right. So after the commencement of the action, that person, the plaintiff, wants to commence an action against the defendant. They have 121 days to do it. So if that person has a false name, guess what? That they're tolling that. So that does not run. That 120 days is not going to run because the person has a false name and the plaintiff can't locate the person because they have a false name, right? So how are they going to file a case against somebody with a false name in the state? Now, the other question is from 207, because remember, it wasn't just about the false name. It was also about, there's two categories in this 207. Someone with a false name, which doesn't allow the potential plaintiff to file a claim. And then the other thing, because the potential defendant has a false name. And then the other thing is that the person is not even in the state, even though they're from the state. It's like they're outside of the state. So that's another time where the time is going to toll. Because, and again, toll means it doesn't run. Those 120 days are not going to run until that person either returns to the state, or in the other case, until that person's real name is known and the plaintiff can actually file against them, because guess what? They know what their freaking name is. So let's go to question 28, which is the one we just did, the one about the false name, which was question 27. Now we're going to go to question 28, which is about if they're outside the state. So if a person is outside, and again, this is CPLR 207, okay, addressing two circumstances. So question 28, if a person is outside this state when a cause of action accrues against him, with no one in the state designated to receive a summons in his behalf, and the person is not susceptible to long-arm jurisdiction, the time within which an action against him must be commenced is told for 4 months, I believe, is the end. Begins to run. It doesn't run immediately. So it's not going to commence immediately because they're out of the state. Is told until the person comes into the state, comes into or returns. Oh, I think that's the answer. C. Is told until 30 days after the person comes into or returns to this state. I believe it's C. I believe that, wait, is told, yeah, it's not gonna run until they return to the state. So that was what, C? Is told until the person comes into returns to the state. So let's see what that turns out to be. Hold on. C, I got it right. Hot diggity dog. I've only looked at it 20 times and I'm still guessing. Okay. So CPLR 207 provides that when the cause of action accrues against a person who is outside New York at the time of accrual, the statute of limitations is told, i.e. does not run. Remember that 120 days is not going to run until the potential defendant comes into or returns to New York. And it's telling you why the other ones are not right. Choices A, B, and C are not supported by CPLR. Okay, so it's just not in there. Note that if the potential defendant is in New York when the cause of action accrues and then departs the state for a period of 4 months or more, the statute of limitations is told for the length of the absence from New York. Okay, that's interesting. Let me read this again. Note that if the potential defendant is in New York when the... he's in New York when the action accrues. So he's aware. Okay, the action accrues and he's in the state. And then he departs, then he leaves the state for a period of 4 months or more. The statute of limitations is told for the length of the absence from New York. So, okay, he's in New York and then all of a sudden he takes off. So the minute that he takes off for a period of 4 months or more, the statute of limitations is told. So if he's gone for 4 months or longer, then, because let's see, 30, 60, 90. Yeah, because it's 120 days for 4 months, right? So remember that 306B says that the person who's filing has 120 days, which is 4 months. So that's why this time says 4 months or more, because basically the 120 days ran out. So that means that the person would have run out of time to it would have gone over the 120 days. So that's why it says 4 months or more. Then they're going to toll that baby for the length of the absence from New York. So I don't know. Did that make sense, guys? There was that one part of the end of 207, which I was a little bit like not totally clear on. Which is this little end part here. Well, there is in force a designation, voluntary or involuntary, made pursuant to